together. That's one of the things that's happening. Okay, I'm so glad that everybody's here. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a crazy, crazy year and a half for, I think, everybody, right? The world's changing big and in so many ways. What I'd like to start is with a prayer by Thomas Merton. Okay. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I'm following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have the desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. That's Thomas Merton. So thank you, Lord. Be with us today, great creator. Guide us, speak to us. Let us know your will for our lives, Lord. And anything that we may need to discover or know or learn, help us to be open to that. Your will be done. Thank you, Lord. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little bit different. So what we're going to do is, I was hoping to get a musician to play for us, and regretfully that didn't happen. Had some challenges with that going on. So I'm going to play a song. This is an old song. This is not from church. This was like on the mainstream pop hits or whatever back probably in the late 60s. But the lyrics of this song and the music of the song, I love it. And I love what it's saying. So you most of you will recognize it. Maybe some of you won't, but try to listen to the lyrics. And what I'd like you to do is kind of get up and move your body a little bit. If you can't get up, you can do it in your chair. And we know we've got a new shoulder and stuff if you can't move that part, but try to move, try to dance in any way you can in your chair. It can be tapping a finger or tapping a toe or moving the body, just trying to get ourselves kind of loosen up. Grief gets stuck in the body. And I think everybody here is very compassionate, and they have some type of ministry. It can be a lay ministry or an official ministry or whatever, but so one of the things that we can get is compassion fatigue. And one of the reasons for that is that when we hear somebody else's pain and loss and grief, we tense up. Most of us will tense up, we'll quit breathing. And the way to help get rid of that is trying not to check your body when you're listening to somebody that's talking to you about their pain, their grief, their loss, their whatever's going on in their life, is trying to keep your body relaxed during the time that you're hearing this, because that compounds over time and you take on their grief. And I'm sure you have enough of your own that you don't need to be taking on everybody else's. Plus, with the world as it is now, the grief of the world is affecting us physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so anyway, so this is a way just to try to loosen up, take a deep breath. Oh, let me show you about the breathing. One of the best breathing exercises, it's really interesting to help if you're feeling anxious or tense, is you take a breath in, inhale, and then inhale again before you let it out, and then let it out. So you do 2 breaths. You breathe in, and then try to get a little bit more, and then breathe out. So let's try it again. Let's try breathe in. 1 more, and breathe out. Can you feel that at all? Hopefully that worked for you. Okay, so now for our song.
The sun is rising, most definitely. A new day's coming. Ooh, people are changing. Ain't it beautiful? Ooh, crystal blue persuasion. Better get ready. Gonna see the light. Love is the answer. That's alright. So don't you give up now. So easy to find. Just look to your soul. Look to your soul. Open your mind. Crystal blue persuasion. Mm-hmm. It's a new vibration. Crystal blue persuasion. Crystal blue persuasion. Maybe tomorrow, when he looks down on every green field, in every town, all of his children, every nation, there'll be peace and good, brotherhood. Crystal blue persuasion. Yeah. Crystal blue persuasion. Crystal blue persuasion.
All right, wonderful. I don't know if you guys saw, but if you could see everybody, I only see a few people, so I don't get to see everybody. But Midge had cloth and stuff there. She was moving around and stuff, and there were hearts going on over here and all kinds of stuff. So thank you so much for participating, for moving and being part of this. We really appreciate it. Sometimes we just need to shake things up. I wanted to share with you and listen to that. This was by Kitty O'Mara. She offers a story of how it could be and what we could do with this time. It was written in March 2020. Okay, and I just think it's beautiful. So I want to read this to you. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed And in the absence of the people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed, the people joined together again. They grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they have been healed. She said, we all have gifts. It's a good reminder that whatever gift your gift is, and however small it is, keep using it. This is a really good time for it, she says. She's always considered herself a writer, and the viral response to this mini reflection is an encouragement for her to keep on writing, especially through this age of coronavirus. Right, that's what you do, is what kept coming to her mind. It's time for people to put their creativity and contributions forward. Dancing, working out, needlepoint, painting, visual art, computer art, learning a new language, a time filled with uncertainty and frustration, as well as a time with potential for transformation. So what I'd like you to consider right now is, where are you now and what has changed in your life? And so we're going to take a few moments to jot those down. I'd ask everybody to bring pen, paper, something to write down. So what are 3 things that have changed in your life right now? And they could have been for the better or for the worse. So what has changed? And maybe you don't like what has changed, and maybe you do. So it would be nice to consider if you had maybe something you did like and at least one thing you didn't. And what we're going to do is we're going to open it up so that people can share the thing. You can share 1, 2, or all 3. It's up. Let's see if it says ask all to unmute. I'm going to see if it will unmute. Okay, so I guess when you want to share, I think a lot of people got unmuted. But if you can look there, and so you can share what has changed.
Are we supposed to be talking? It's
Well,
mighty
share,
quiet.
yeah.
Can I use your card?
Yeah, who
Can
would
you
ever
use
like to
your card?
share?
Can I
If
use
someone
your
would like to
card?
share.
Of course you can.
Coffee?
You don't even have to ask me. It's your
I was
card.
trying to touch it. Isn't that silly?
It's in the
Okay.
microwave.
So would somebody like to share?
Yes, I'll start off by just saying it changed my life schedule, and probably a positive thing, more reflective time. Some of it was pretty negative, based on fear, but some of it was helpful and positive.
Thank you, John. Yes.
At the beginning of this, I was in a nursing home because I had fallen and broken my leg.
There we go.
And the day that they shut down the nursing home and everybody went into quarantine, I said, if I'm going to be in quarantine, I'd rather be home. And so I came home. But that's a change that has happened. My leg has healed and it's in pretty good shape now.
Excellent. Excellent, Liz.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I was in hospital and rehab twice. Once I fell and broke my foot. And the other time I fell and broke my shoulder and dislocated it. So the whole business of being in rehab and having other people taking care of you because you can't take care of yourself, that's a whole new thing. And having my daughter here, she's just waited on me hand and foot. And it's difficult when you're so eager to be independent and live your life, you know, oh, I can do it myself. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I've gotten to a whole new point. And the other thing that I discovered, a much closer walk with God, much more dependent upon where God is leading and what God is doing with my life. I had at 89, I was telling my daughter Diane, I had a lot of ever since I hit 85, I had a lot of fear about what it would be like when I was 90. And now, what with one thing and another, I feel stronger than I've ever felt. And I'm not at all afraid of what's next. I'm just taking it one day at a time and knowing that, yeah, I handled the broken foot, I handled a shoulder dislocated, and I can handle most anything, I've decided.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Great. Wonderful. Would anybody else like to share? Because I have asked actually Karen and Steve to share their life because they are a couple. So it's interesting when I think it's very different when you are a couple compared to if you live alone, like I live alone. So I will share some of my story. And I know Marlene lives alone. Well, now she's got her daughter there, but normally she's alone, but she needed her daughter for the help. And so just to see what the differences are and how we're getting through it and survive it. And then hopefully the challenges, because the challenges are very different from, I think if you've got somebody under your foot all the time, right? Compared to if there's nobody there at all. And even though we're learning Zoom, we're learning all these things, which have been wonderful, it's different than being in person, you know, not being able to go to church, not being able to mix or touch or hug or kiss a person, you know? And so, so did anybody else like to share?
I can share because my position is entirely different than most.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
I am one of two people who do the finances for my congregation. The other one is an 85-year-old woman who had to have hip replacement surgery, so she has not been very mobile at all. So it fell upon me to take care of all of the on-site finance work for the congregation, and the church is about 15 miles from where I live. Then the pastor left, then the secretary left. And in spite of supposed lockdown, I have found myself exceedingly more involved and busy than I ever have been in years. And so the challenge for me is having to figure out how to say no. And I'm basically the only person able to take care of business. And that has been a pillar of a challenge. I fear I need prayer because I'm not handling it well.
Okay, and we will pray for you, Neil. That's right. Your name down that we know to keep.
Just so you know, I'm in a collar today because we have an outside group using our sanctuary for a funeral. And because we have no pastor, we needed some sort of authority type figure to represent the congregation. And
You're
I thought,
representing. Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So even though I explained to the lady, I'm not the pastor of the congregation, I am a pastor, she winked and said, that's fine.
Good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mute everybody so that Karen and Steve can unmute themselves and share their stories. Is that all right, Karen? Okay.
Sure.
Let's see, just so we don't have the background.
Yeah, it helps. Our internet is a little wonky, so we'll do the best that we can. I didn't focus entirely on us as a couple, so I apologize for that, but I will talk about it a little bit. I found that my life was getting a little bit ho hum before all of this COVID began. My routine um, was pretty well set. I did yoga a couple days a week. I did centering prayer 3 days a week. I had worship on Sunday. I had a 12-step Overeaters Anonymous meeting on one night a week. Just becoming a little bit tired of that routine. And then all of a sudden, COVID came along. So at first, it was a pretty interesting diversion. We followed the numbers and the cases, and I'm a medical person, so that was of interest to me. We searched for toilet paper and all the products that we couldn't find on the shelves. I cleaned cupboards and sorted old photos and put my journals in order, did things like that were kind of fun for a while. I also found that as the winter went along, winter gets pretty gray, and I'd appreciate the things like a snowfall would just be really wonderful here in Michigan. So when that happened, I had this kind of increasing sense of the appreciation of the natural world as our lockdown kind of went on and on. Our church didn't meet at all for a while. And then as spring began to dawn, this was last year, before we had any of the kind of communication we have now, our church met in the parking lot. Our priest left a year ago, Epiphany. So it's been about a year and a half now. We've been without a priest in an Episcopal church. So we're really, we're struggling now with that, but for those times we did morning prayer in the parking lot and were led by one of us or the other of us, and had different people giving homilies and stories of their lives. So it really was a rich and amazing time that we could assemble 20 or 30 people in the parking lot of our church. It's pretty and it's shady and there are flowers, so in the summertime it's a nice place to be. And then came Zoom, and we began to communicate over Zoom, and I found that to be also rich, surprisingly so, because, for instance, in my 12-step group, there were about 4 of us that met here in person in my little town, and when we had Zoom, we could have people attending from. Well, one person attended who lives in Seattle, and several people attended who lived in about an hour away in Michigan. So there were people that I've grown to know and love from very different places who've been able to meet weekly over Zoom and share our lives pretty deeply. And the other thing is that I see faces, and I look at faces in Zoom a whole lot more than I ever did sitting in church or in a meeting. And so I've come to really appreciate and love those faces that I'm looking at. But my routine became once again, actually really a nice routine. I did my coffee in the morning, listen to a spiritual podcast, have my prayer time, and then I take a walk every day, and then have a little lunch, and then do a little 12-step work after lunch, and then got a new bike last summer. Steve bought me a bike for his birthday. So we'd go for a bike ride in the afternoon, have dinner. So life became pretty good. My relationship with my daughters, who all live in different places. I have one in California, one in New Mexico, and one who lives kind of in her husband's big truck, and they travel all over the South. So they have a real interesting life. And she began to send pictures of the spring this year. She'd send pictures of wisteria and redbud and dogwood, and I'd send pictures of snowstorms and then some of the things that started blooming and greening up here in the Midwest. So my relationship, I think, with daughters and grandchildren enriched because of Zoom and FaceTime. We were just, there was nothing much else to do. Well, let's call mom, you know. So that was a good piece of it. Steve and I really had a chance to become closer, and he'll share a little bit too, I hope. But you know, it was the two of us, and we had our separate little routines, but we also had things that we did together, walking and some of those kinds of things. So I think our relationship deepened over this time. And that is not to say that we weren't together in the house and sort of stumbling into each other every now and then, because that was a part of it too. And I find the need to go and sit someplace now, and as summer comes in this part of the world, I can go sit outside and be alone for an hour or two and read a book or whatever, because that's a need as well. But those are some of the things, some of the ways that that COVID has been for us. I just want to say a word or two, and I don't know if that's going to be part of our discussion today, but there's a grief involved in coming back into the world for me and for the people that I communicate with. A sense of the loss of some of those advantages, some of the freedom and that sense of openness that we used to get when we were kids and we got out of school in the summer, you know. Summer was never going to end, and there was that sense for me of openness that now is beginning to go away. The sense of dawning responsibility again for a church that doesn't have a priest, and the need to find a priest and pray for that to happen. So there's a grieving, I think, for me that's happening, and for many of the people that I speak with, as we come back into a different way of living. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
We do not have a big house, but the house is big enough so that the two of us can find our own separate spaces when we need to. And we can choose when we're going to be together and for what purposes. And we can choose when we're going to be alone and for what purposes. It's also helped that we have property outside the house. We have a lot, and we've turned a good deal of the yard into garden space, and that's been a mutual project. So we're experimenting more with flowers and plants and trying to beautify the space that we have available to us. It's also true, I think, that we have been able to be more purposeful about physical health, the bicycle and the walking, and I've continued to play tennis. Church has been different. Our pastor died suddenly in the middle of COVID, and that's been a challenge for our little church. Only recently have we begun to meet again. The grieving there for me is that I'm a healer, so I need to touch people. The laying on of hands, the anointing is important, and we couldn't do that until 4 days ago. We started again, and that's a real pump up. That's meaningful to me, to be able to touch someone else in the name of Jesus. So that's an important part of this return to the kind of living that we did prior. My hope is that we maintain what we've learned in terms of quiet and space and silence, and that we are slower to return to a life that is too full. That's it, Lori.
All right. Thank you, Karen and Steve. Thank you so much. I think it's important to get the different perspectives. I live alone with my cat, and which, thank God I have my cat, because I'm a very, I get my energy with other people and being with people, and talking on the phone, even Zoom, is not the same. And so to touch somebody or to be in their presence, to feel their energy, it has been extremely difficult and challenging for me. And I actually live in Mexico, just south of San Diego, just south of California. And it's been interesting being in a different country. And then also, crossing the border. I'm only like a half hour from the border. So I do cross, once or twice a month. And so different things that were going on. But when it first started, I mean, the fear that was going on, and the people, my friends down here, and people that I would see, then they quit seeing each other, everybody isolated, everybody, we didn't know what to do. And then the fear was so strong and so rapid. And I was listening to news and stuff, and I really got depressed and stuff. I had to cut out some of the news. I had to, I wanted to know what was going on, but I couldn't be watching it all the time because it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my mental health, my emotional health. And plus I live right here by the beach, and usually walk the beach, and then they closed the beaches. And we weren't supposed to walk on the beach, but sometimes I would sneak down and walk anyway. I just had to get out. And then I found out, I'm walking the beach one day, and I see a couple that lives in the next campo near me, and they come up, they're walking their dogs, and we're all on the beach. And I said, well, did you hear there's a big fine if you get caught on the beach, right? And we're going, oh no, I didn't know, And so, because there were a few other people, not too many. I mean, it's a huge beach, but we weren't too crowded. But we're walking along, and all of a sudden the lady looks up, she goes, oh my gosh, look. And we saw lights flashing, and like a Jeep, like a military or police Jeep was coming, and we took off running. And like, I'm in my 60s, they're in their 50s, and we were running so hard, we were out of breath. We're running up to get off the beach so we wouldn't get fined, right? But we felt like school kids in trouble. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get home? It's like, because I had to get past a fence and all this stuff. But it was one of those moments that we could laugh about. I mean, we didn't get in trouble. And actually, I later talked to the police. They would just ask people to please leave, families and stuff. You're not allowed on the beach at this time, and so they were really good. I mean, I don't think they may have ticketed people if they fought or, were angry with them, but they were actually very nice and saying, no, just, this is the rules right now. But anyway, so it's been an interesting time. But something that happened was, as I was, worrying about everything, like all the losses, like one of my big dreams has been, this has been on my bucket list for many, 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 many years, 30, 40 years, is to trek Milford Sound, New Zealand. It's supposed to be the most beautiful walk in the world. It's very famous. It's people have written about it in the 30s, 40s. It's supposed to be so amazing. And one of the things is like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that in my lifetime. Americans aren't allowed to go to New Zealand. They aren't allowed to go to England. They aren't allowed to go to Australia. They aren't allowed to be in Canada. They aren't allowed to be a lot of places right now. And that's so right now. So, and we don't know what's going to happen. And so it's just been interesting because I do love to travel and see new cultures and people and all that. And so the losses and the grief of that and not knowing, and it's like, wow, what is this going to be like? What is going on? And then one of the things that the church that I belonged to, then we were doing it online and stuff. And then, there was some dissension, some different things going on there. And anyway, I found a new church that opened up over here, not too far from me, and went to this church, and it's all Spanish speaking. Well, I don't really speak Spanish. I'm taking Spanish lessons, but it's not coming very easy to me. And so one of the things that happened, so this was during before Easter. And so the priest, it's actually a Catholic church, and the priest was doing confessions. And so I said, well, I'd like to meet with the priest, it's like, am I beating myself up, other people or whatever, so anyway, I meet with the priest. So he meets me outside before church starts, right? Because he'd met other people and stuff. Anyway, this time worked good. So we come out there. So I'm speaking in English, talking to him. And I later discovered he really doesn't speak much English. So he really didn't understand. But thank God, God knew what I was saying, right? But as soon as I quit talking, he reached out and he touched me. And that touch, like you said, Steve, that touch, it felt good to have hands on me. He touched my body and he started praying in Spanish. And I could feel the presence so strong that God was there, God knew, and God healed. It was through God, through him and me, that we were there together. And I just felt this overwhelming peace come over me. And so it's real interesting. Would I have showed up there? Would I have gone there if all this wouldn't have happened? Maybe not. And so it's like, wow, how can God use this? How is God using this for all of us to learn and grow, and what's next? And anyway, I've just found it very interesting, just what has been happening. And then I started, I'll go through spells and started listening to news a little bit more and all the stuff. And then all of a sudden, my vision, I started getting squigglies in my vision. I couldn't see. I'm getting terrible migraines. I get to the ophthalmologist in the States. He says, it's not my eyes, it's my brain. And then I can't see, I can't in the noise, I can't be in sound. And so I totally had to talk about withdrawing, crawl into bed, be in darkness, and just and praying to God. And just, I couldn't see to drive, to go places, to do things. Nobody's around. The people that I rent from, they're only here part of the year and stuff. And because of COVID, they weren't here then. And so it's like, what do I do? I mean, it was really a challenging time. And I had got hit in the head by the trunk of my car, and it had knocked me out. So I'd had a concussion. I later found out, gone to a brain clinic and got this assessed and everything. And it just takes time. And actually, thank God, I can see, and I don't get very many headaches now and all that, but I got through it. But it was interesting. I couldn't read, I couldn't write. And those were things that I had been doing, right? And so it's like, oh, what do I do now? And so actually I saw some movies, because I could turn on a movie kind of low or whatever. And I saw some very inspirational movies that I probably wouldn't have watched or even known about. And so it was interesting just how the different challenges we have, people, illness, they fall, they break something or something dislocates. And it's just like, what do we do? I mean, we're all going through this, but I think something that Karen had said about the collective grief, that's all over, just all the changes, things that people missed, funerals. I don't know if you guys had it, funerals, depending on where you live, what you were allowed to do or not allowed to do. So I'm more closer to knowing what was happening in California compared to other states, and then what's happening in Mexico. At least in the state that I'm in Mexico, not all of Mexico, because Mexico is huge, like the US. But it's interesting, what do we do? How do we go through this? And then what's going to happen next? We don't really know. And so I have a meditation for us to do. So I'm going to read that meditation. So this is a time to just kind of get comfortable, get in a position that you feel really good, that I can lead you in this meditation. But have a pen and paper handy, because I want you to, you're going to be writing, jotting words down or whatever, so you can remember what happens during this. And then what we're going to do after we're finished, we're going to break into small groups. And so Greg, if you can hear this, groups of about 3, and try not to put the couples in the same group. So, because that's an extra person. So that we'll have a chance to share what happened during this meditation. Because I think during meditations, we can speak to God, and then God can speak to us. And our great creator, or Yahweh, whatever you want to call the divine, can speak to us, the spirit, and Jesus, whatever resonates with you. But and also can be another person, a wise person, a wise, that speaks to us, our soul inside of us. And so I'm going to lead us in this. My glasses here. So if you can just get comfortable and try to relax and move your body, just so you feel good. And we're going to lift this up to the Lord. Please, Lord, guide us, and let everything that happens is something that we need to hear or learn about ourselves, how we can be the people you want us to be. Your will be done in our lives, and lead us, Lord, during this meditation. I want you to imagine that you're going into a bare and distant land, high in the mountains that reach far above any known civilization. Notice the warm terracotta color of the earth, the feel of the hard clay beneath your feet. Be aware that you have come here to discover something that is important for you to know. The trail leads you upward, and as you climb higher, notice the primitive formation of ancient stone structures where once a great people lived before they moved on. The trail leads you to a place where you can see 100 caves in the mountainside. There are large caves and small ones, some easily accessible, others more difficult to reach. In the past, people lived in those caves, and you can sense how one might have lived a fine life in this place. For there's an aura of peace and tranquility, of history, and of personal passages. In this civilization, great lessons were learned, and you might feel that some of this wisdom can be transmitted to you in some indescribable way. As you look at the caves, there is one in particular that draws your attention. This cave seems familiar, though you can't imagine why. It may contain secrets. It may reveal something that is important for you to know. Something about your present circumstance is associated with that cave. Notice that there's an easy way to get to this cave. Take the path that leads you there, and when you enter the cave, pay careful attention to everything that you see in that place. Now look at the relationship of this cave to the other caves that exist in this cluster of dwellings. Is your cave surrounded by others, or does it stand alone? Is it small or large? Let this cave represent your present and the memories of your past. Let it contain all the wishes and dreams, the assumptions and perceptions that you have acquired all through your life. On your paper, write what you see and what you feel about this cave. when you feel ready. Nothing stays the same. Everything is in a process of change. You move on in subtle ways or dramatic ways, in gentle transitions or sudden awareness. You will not stay the same. Now imagine standing at the opening of your cave, where you can see the multitude of caves before you. When the time comes for you to move on, where would you like to go? Is there one cave that stands out as the best of choices? If you were to move on to this new place, there would be things that you would need to take with you. Perhaps courage, a sense of adventure. There would also be things you would need to leave behind. Perhaps some old habits, addictions, attitudes. Soon you will move on to the new cave. What will you want to take with you when you move? Make a note of your ideas in your notebook. Also write down the things you want to leave behind: possessions, habits, addictions, attitudes that are no longer working for you. When you're ready, take the path that will lead you to the new cave. What do you see in this new place? What is the relationship of this new cave to the others? How do you feel in this place? What are the challenges here? And what are the risks? What are the pleasures, the rewards? Is there anything you need that you don't have? Can you provide it for yourself? How do you feel physically? How do you feel emotionally? How do you feel spiritually? Are there any surprises for you here? Stay in this cave as long as it is nourishing for you to do so, as long as the secrets of the cave are being revealed to you. If you'd like your mentor or creator to appear to you in this place, let it happen now. Ask any questions you need to ask and hear any answers that are valuable for you to hear. Make use of your time in this mystical place in any way that is helpful for you. When you're ready, slowly bring yourself back and make any notes of any insights you want to remember. in sleeping dreams and in imaginary dreams, caves and houses are metaphors for our inner self. What did your caves reveal about the way you feel about yourself? Were there any surprises for you in this dream? We're now going to take like about a 5-minute little break to get up and move, use the bathroom, get a drink or something. Let's say 10 minutes. We'll take a little break. And then when we come back, Greg will put us into small groups of about 3. So then we can share any insights, anything, share about our caves, anything about it. Did it work for you? Were you able to do it, or just what's coming up for you? Okay, so we will take a break for 10 minutes and come back at 11:15 Pacific time.
How long do you want the break rooms for, Laurie? How long?
So the break rooms will be for like 25 minutes.